I'm Coach Ben. Welcome to my channel, where we only focus on love and positivity. So sit back and let's go on this healing and happiness journey together. I am looking forward to supporting your leap into victory every day.
Hey, how are you? How are you doing? I hope you're well. It is your neighborhood coach, Coach Ben. And today I am here because I'm a teeny tiny bit fired up from the perspective of I'm calling on all of my coaches. Coaches, where are you? I don't want us to get a bad rap. There is this beautiful sister out there that is allegedly a doctor. She's being questioned on that, but then she's also transitioned into saying she's a life coach. And I'm not here to attack her. You all know I don't name drop that, and that's probably why my channel is struggling, because I don't name drop. I don't talk about people. I try to bring coaching sessions to the enters of the nets to support people moving through their lives. And I try to remain as an authentic coach. And what I want to address is, and I feel like I have to stand up for, is the coaching framework. Now, there are some people who just label themselves as a coach, and that is absolutely okay. And I have my notes. I have some of my education. I pull out, I don't know if you've looked at any of my other videos before, but I'll pull out my coaching framework and education in a minute. And I've got some notes because I want to address a couple of things. And this young lady has been on everybody's podcast, Nick Cannon, Cam Newton, I think Shannon Sharp, The Breakfast Club. But what I want to focus on is starting with the celebrity coach, which is nothing new, right? When I was called into coaching as a vehicle to use to serve the people, when I identified what my purpose was, and coaching was the vehicle to do that, I was like, a coach? And when I thought about a coach, I thought about the celebrity coaches who I grew up on. The godfather of coaching, Les Brown. The godmother of coaching, Iyanla Vanzant. There are so many, Lisa Nichols, the ultimate Tony Robbins. So celebrity coaches or coaches who are popular in the media is nothing new under the sun. But I think what kind of grinded my gears with the beautiful sister Cheyenne Bryant is we're using the terminology coaching as if I get to be loosey-goosey and do and say whatever I want because I'm a coach, and I'm not using or under the guardrail of a license as a therapist. And anyone who's gone to a coaching program, you know for sure the first thing that they open with, this is my first practical book from my coaching institute. The first thing that they do is break down what coaching is and what coaching isn't, and identifying what your niche is as a coach, because a life coach is a blanket statement, but coaches really should be focusing on what their strength is. Like, for example, there are coaches that only focus on coaching nurses through burnout. There are coaches that only focus on career coaching and entrepreneurship, right? But if you've gone through a coaching institute, they'll tell you there's a difference between being a consultant, being a mentor, being a therapist, a sports coach, a friend, right? Now, you may become a combination of all of those things once you build a rapport with your client, but you should be sure to tell them as your coach, one of the modalities that we'll use to support you to get to your goal is therapy. As a matter of fact, you may need a therapist, you may need a personal trainer, you may need to book sessions with your priest, your minister. Like, we're not the end all be all. And when I went through my book, I went to my note. And one of the notes that I put here was, therapy brings you from dysfunctional to functional. And coaching brings you from functional to optimal. Coaching is really about goal setting. And if there's any blocks or barriers in the way, we identify what gremlin. And the gremlin is that inner thought, that thing that says, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not man enough, you're not woman enough. And we go, if there is some trauma that we need to scratch, we'll bring it up in conversation, but go, the trauma treatment really should come from a psychiatrist, because you may need to be prescribed a medication to support you dealing with the anxiety. Now, as a coach, my goal or your goal with me might be, Coach Ben, I'm not ready for a therapist yet. I'm not ready for a therapist yet. Our sessions might be around supporting you to book a session with a therapist, or going to psychology.com and putting in all of the filters to find a therapist that fits your needs, right? I'm a gay Black woman. Okay, let's find a gay Black female therapist. As a coach, I'm supporting you in identifying that. So I feel like I got to come out and go, listen, we're not out here just loosey-goosey trying to treat everything under the sun. And I got my notes in my phone because I want to stay clear, right? So as a coach, I'm a certified professional coach. And when I identified that is something that I wanted to do, take your notes, I went to the ICF. The ICF is the International Coaching Federation. I did that because I wanted to find an accredited coach training program, which would validate me as a coach, where I would have the tools to equip me. I did this back in 2013, 2014, and I practiced as a coach within the training confine, if you will, of what I was provided through that institute. Now, there's a lot of coaching. Become a coach in 24 hours or 48 hours for $13.99, right? And I mean $13.99. If they are not accredited, and accreditation means that they don't have a framework that carefully trains the coach to not put the client in harm's way. If what they do does not or is not rooted in the APA, American Psychological Association, where we are rooted in the code of ethics, even though we're not licensed therapists, but we still have to function within that guise. If they're not in a program that promotes that, I don't know if that's the coach you should be going to. So you ask, one, is the training program an accredited training program through the ICF? Or are you an ICF trained coach, which a lot of people are? The other side of that is the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches. This is where you can get a taxonomy code so that you can apply for an NPI, so that you can start billing insurance, which really makes it strict for you, because as a health and wellness coach, you have to work within a specific framework. So Coach Ben, help me out. What does that mean? So when you come to me, my sessions or our sessions may feel therapeutic, but I'm not a therapist. And I'll tell my clients in a minute, we've been working on this thing for like the past 90 days, for the past 3 months. You haven't moved, you haven't budged. What do you think is happening, right? And my clients, I may go, have you found that therapist yet? Have you found that psychologist yet? And they'll go, Coach Ben, I don't want to leave you. I still want to work with you. And I'm like, you should work with all of us, right? You're going to pay out of pocket to work with me, but they can bill insurance to work with you. You may need the next level of care. You may need to work with them for 6 months and then come back to me when you're ready to approach that goal, right? So when you are ready to actually write your book or plan your event or go back to school and you need someone to support you in maneuvering what those steps are, right? So if it's not ICF, right? If it's not the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches, we really do have to coach from a place of standard. I don't want people to think that me or other coaches are getting on the onlines and just making shit up, because we're not. We just can't do that, right? Now, in my space, my goal was to eventually, or is to eventually, become a therapist, but I love coaching. There's a difference. I love coaching, right? And I hold a master's in psychology. Now, my undergrad is my undergrad is a bachelor's in psychology with a focus on addiction, right? So as I was going through my bachelor's program, I did a lot of clinical work and hours under therapists in rehabs and recovery facilities in Ocean County. I worked in halfway houses that had recovery and treatment facilities. I did a lot of work with domestic violence. So some of you might know my backstory. And there's a difference. I'm a coach in private sessions, but also did motivational speaking for a long time. Like, there's an opportunity to blur the line, but I'm here today to say I don't want to blur the line. I don't want people representing us or representing the practice as if it doesn't hold weight. Now, here's another example. For 7 years, I worked for an organization called Able To. Look it up. Able To is governed by United Healthcare Optum, right? In that program, you sign up for a 60-day treatment program where every week you meet with a therapist and a senior behavioral health clinician, aka a coach. So for 7 years, I saw clients where they had a therapist that would adhere to a very rich clinical regimen. And as a coach, I had very specific guidelines that I could not color outside of. As a coach, you are to do and say this. If they're in this program for grieving and mourning, the bereavement program, here is essentially your script and the clinical setting that you must coach within. If they're here for anxiety and depression, here is the list of things that as a coach you can mention. As the therapist, I talk medication, I talk trauma, I talk specific treatment. As the coach, you're coaching to goal setting, right? I'm depressed, I'm experiencing anxiety, right? So we talk about coping skills, right? Are you journaling? Are you exercising? What's your sleep hygiene? Are you picking up what I'm putting down, right? And so insurance covered all of that. I want to go deeper. In that program, they have what's called a coach-only program and a therapy only program. But because I'm a coach and I was a coach for the coach-only program, you could only be in the coach-only program if your therapist cleared you, okay? So I just want you guys to understand that this coaching thing is not some willy-nilly fly-by-night. I call myself a coach, and then I can get online and everywhere and give you a bunch of advice. When I do it and I provide advice and I go, hey, this is not CDC statistics, right? This may not even be science. This is Coach Ben having thousands of hours of coaching practice and hundreds of clients. This is what I've seen, right? If you want me to look up the statistics and provide that, I will do that for you, right? But there's always a disclaimer. And I try not to go from, well, this is what I think, because what I think doesn't matter. What I think isn't science. What I think isn't psychology, right? Now, I've become an expert in some spaces, but what I think doesn't matter if there is no data to support it. Okay? In my work now, my title in my corporate job, I coach corporate leaders, is training and coaching manager, right? I cannot go into a corporate space and coach a senior director, giving them advice on how they should handle their personal relationships. Coaching is about where is the block? Where is the opportunity for you to succeed and be successful, right? Now, if that's in your personal life, then if we mention it in a professional setting, it may be from the perspective of you've invested so much time in your professional life that you've neglected your personal life. And as your coach, I want to put on the table opportunities to balance that. And if that is something you want to explore, but we're not coaching what I want to coach, we're coaching what you want. And as coaches, here's the number one thing. Our clients always have their answer. They have their own answer. We don't need to give it to them. We support them and coach them through it. What's a skill as a coach? Empowering questions. What's a skill as a coach? Visioning. What would it look like if you never had to worry about money? What would you do every day when you woke up? Now, how do we get you there? Right? So I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything, because I'll start rambling, but I needed to come on here and say, listen, there's a lot of us out here who respect all things therapy, all things psychology, all things coaching, and life coach is not an excuse for us to get out here and say and do whatever we want and be combative and give advice. That's not my role to give you advice. Now, do clients ask me, and I go, I'm taking my coach hat off. Are you asking Ben? Because we've been in a coaching relationship for 2 years. Ben, what would you do? And I'll say, I'm not advising you to do what Ben did, right? Because outside of coaching, Ben might be a little crazy. So you can't do what Ben did. But that's a rapport, right? But you have to be very careful. You can't go into the coaching relationship doing that. And you have to be clear with your client that I may not be enough. I have some clients that they've refused to see a therapist, so I won't see them anymore. Right? Because I'm like, we've hit the brick wall. We've hit the brick wall. And now you've become so used to me, right? And our relationship that you think that this is it. I'm not enough. Like, we've been coaching around you losing 30 pounds for the past year. You haven't lost a pound. And I keep coaching you around what you said you were going to do, and that's get a personal trainer and cut back, and you haven't done a thing. You just like talking to me, and I appreciate it, but I don't want to talk to you anymore. Right? Coaches, come on now. We have to know when our services are no longer valid. And because I've worked in a clinical setting, there are certain things that you should know when we get to serious things like suicidal ideation. I worked on a suicide hotline, right? On a chat. I used to work the suicide hotline. Within my clinical work, they say these are questions every session I had to ask and do a suicidal ideation check-in, right? And my clients would be like, oh my God, Ben, no, I'm okay, right? I just didn't feel like getting up today, right? I'm not thinking about taking myself out. So I want to wrap this up with saying that sister, she's beautiful. I love her because That's what the God of my understanding has commissioned me and called me to do, is love on people. But as a coach, I must represent and stand up for. There's a very rigid, strict framework that we have to operate from. There are accredited coaching federations out there. Look up the ICF, look up the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches, where there is a strict and rigid program, because in order for you to bill insurance companies through the board, you have to go through a rigid coaching program. Right? And so my hat is always off to therapists. Listen, I have a therapist, right? I love my therapist. I love going to therapy because I don't want to try to figure everything out on my own. It's too much. I want to go and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, right? Help me help myself, right? I'm a Black man that loves therapy, right? I'm a Black man who loves science. I'm a Black man who is spiritual and loves the Lord. I'm all of those things. I'm every man. It's all in me, right? So much love to all of the coaches out there who have studied, right? And I want to leave you with this. If you go to the national board, and this may shock you, NYU has a coaching program. Duke Medical has a coaching program. Kaiser Permanente has a coaching program. Coaching is not a fly-by-night. It's a valid, structured framework that is rooted in the APA, where we have to abide by the code of ethics, and we have to use a specific framework to coach. And if coaching doesn't fit the bill, use another method. Again, Coach Ben, I've rambled, but I love you. I'll talk to you soon.